Another edition of the Hispanic Patriot, a vodcast broadcast live here behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And now, without further ado, here is the co-host Nick Rezo and Hugo Chavez Rey, our jefe. Take it away, Hugo.
El jefe, el vato. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We've got a full slate on tap for you tonight, and then later on, about the half-hour mark, we're going to bring on a guest, a very special guest, Heidi Ganahl, who is was a candidate for governor in the last election, she's going to share with us some information about a group that she has helped put together called Rocky Mountain Voice. And it is an independent group that is designed to get information out to the grassroots and help unite the conservatives behind a common cause, and try to filter out the parts that we disagree. I mean, we're like a family, we're going to have times where we disagree, and it's okay as long as we're doing it respectfully. So there's never an opportunity to not be able to have dialogue. So her organization, or the one that she's helped launch, is dedicated to that cause, but she'll be giving us some insight and hopefully a little bit more understanding of what the Rocky Mountain Voice is doing. So without further ado, we've got a slate of topics that we'd like to cover. We'd like to take a moment and talk about the event that we did last Sunday in Windsor, Colorado. Actually, a week ago Sunday in Windsor, Colorado, at the American Legion, and that was for the conservative, the Colorado Conservative Patriot Alliance, and it was a meet and greet for candidates from CD4 and CD8, and it was a well-attended event. I'd say a couple of hundred people showed up.
Oh yeah, easily.
And packed house. It was standing room only. And most of the candidates got to give their little stump speech. And then we had an opportunity to interview about a half a dozen of the candidates. And we have those up on our YouTube channel. And we're also going to give you some links to get there if you're interested in checking out what the individual interviews had to say. So the first topic that we want to talk to about tonight is our South Carolina primary. If you're following the primaries, that was the home state primary for Nikki Haley. And as expected, President Trump ended up, I think, besting her by a little over 30 points. But that's not enough to get Heidi out of the race. She's a little on the stubborn side, but I think the money, where the money's coming from, has a lot to do with it. From what I can gather, a lot of her money is coming from outside sources. They're not what I would consider loyal Republicans. Most of them are anti-Trump Republicans. So, and then there's a lot of independent and even Democrat money that's supporting her. So I'm guessing that her philosophy is, as long as the money's coming in, she's going to hang in there.
Really seems that way.
Yeah, and it's sad because I think she's done damage to her own image. I think after this campaign, she's going to be done in the Republican Party.
At least in where the Republican Party's going. One correction, Hugo. I believe you said Heidi when you meant to say Haley. We don't want to tarnish Heidi's good name now, but we make sure that she knows. Hey, take back any anything close to your name from this anti-Trump idol.
Did I say Heidi?
Yeah, you did by
Oh my
accident. But,
God.
hey, don't worry. It's a very similar name. And you know what?
My
Like I said,
apologies.
but you know what? It fits because, that's exactly what Haley is trying to do, is pretend to be a principled Republican like our guest. That because she is an anti-Trump idol right now. That's the only reason she's going to stay in the race. Any principled candidate at this point would say, okay, I lost my home state. It's very clear that the voters don't want me. But she's not interested in the voters. She's interested in certain voters. You look at the districts that she actually did very well in, and it's mostly like the Capital District, urban democratized kind of social liberal Republicans are really her bread and butter. Whereas you look at, say, the district with the most amount of Hispanics and African Americans, which a lot of people don't know, South Carolina has about 5 to 10% Hispanic population throughout the state, and Trump did very well in all of those places where he's reaching the minority vote, where he's reaching the rural vote. A big place he won at was on the border between the other Appalachia, I should say. The rural areas where people are really forgotten, and that's what Haley doesn't represent, is the forgotten at all. She represents the well-remembered.
Well, I think she's gone off script. I don't know who's advising her, but I think she's getting bad advice. But
She has to go off script. It's going so badly, the script that she's been given.
It's interesting. I'm looking at the numbers here for South Carolina, and it looks like the final tally is 59% to 39%.
Yeah, 60-40.
And,
it's pretty big.
And interestingly enough, Ron DeSantis garnered a little under 3,000 votes in the
people are still trying, giving Ron a nice third place, fair enough.
So I guess that prevented 0.39 prevented Trump from hitting the 60%.
Speaking from Florida, he needs the bronze medal, nice and tanned, that's his bronze.
Well, I know he's not asking for it. It's just people
exactly.
that went out and voted and had him on the ballot. And even Vivek ended up with,
even he got some, yeah,
3%.
It shows the Republican Party has a real future because they're already looking past now, whether it's, the two guys people voted for or someone new up and coming. People are ready to go. That's the thing I want to stress right here. The exit polls that the media is all talking about is, people are only voting for Trump as a last resort. They don't really want this. I would say that that's not true at all. Republican voters absolutely want someone after Trump. After Trump.
Yes.
That's the point that we're not budging on. It's like, no, we'll have Trump, and then we'll be glad to have somebody else. But no, we're getting Trump his, what was stolen from him in 2020, and then we can go from there. But until then, this is the guy, people.
Well, the voters are speaking out, and even in the minority communities, I saw an interview of a Black lady in Chicago who was a staunch, lifelong Democrat. And they had her on, and they asked her about what she was thinking about, and she brought it up right away. She says, the Black community in Chicago is tired of the local government propping up the illegal immigrants and taking resources away from the minority communities who are American citizens.
Absolutely.
And she closed out by saying, I have been a lifelong Democrat. I have never voted for a Republican in my life. That will change this November. So she put it right out there. She's already made up her mind. She's voting Republican this election.
That's beautiful.
And she's not alone. I can guarantee.
Not at all. Actually, just a quick note on Chicago. Chicago was very, very close, actually, to electing a centrist mayor. I forget his name right now, but he's a Greek gentleman, very, very great in the community. And he got edged out by the same machine, which has turned on the people who have put them in power.
The daily machine.
Yeah, really. Being from Chicago myself, I could tell you some stories.
I'm very familiar with the daily machine. That started way back in the day.
Every day, really.
And they've had a stranglehold on that city forever. But
it's coming apart now, but it's coming up slow. That's what happens.
As they start to lose their minority voters, I think there's hope for some changes coming in cities.
We are their
Chicago.
backbone. We are their backbone. Yep. We got to keep saying that.
Yep. So let's segue into something along those lines, and that's something that popped up on the news, and it really was appalling to watch. But there was this illegal migrant that is apparently considered an influencer on TikTok, and he has over 300,000 followers. This is a Venezuelan illegal immigrant, and he was on there bragging about living off U.S. taxpayers. He says he's allergic to work, and I came to vacation. So
great, man. When you going back?
This guy, I'm shocked that he's got 300,000 followers.
You're shocked that someone on the internet has no shame and has popularity, Hugo? That's exactly right. You know what I mean? That's what these people do. You know, they have no shame, and that's how they get their followers. That's how they get their views. And you see the same tactics in the Democrat Party. Look at them up there, you know, always doing, you know, going crazy about something. You know, that's how they get. Even our governor got famous. But you remember Jared Polis's little freak out when he was in Congress.
Yep. Well, he was on there. He did this little rant on social media, and they published it, and it's been all over. The guy's from Venezuela, and he's got a lot of followers, and he's basically urging the Venezuelan community to support this 15-year-old migrant who was charged for shooting a tourist in New York Times Square. 15 years old, and apparently the laws in New York are not going to allow them to charge him as an adult. So he's basically going to get released, and this guy is calling for the entire nation of Venezuelan immigrants to help reach out and support this single mother and this criminal son.
Wow, I mean, maybe if any Mexican at all gets taken in for a crime at the border, everyone should just immediately demand the invasion of the United States by Mexico. That's ridiculous. Just because one of your people is being offended, and in this case, it's completely brought to justice. Actually, it doesn't mean that you can just freak out about it and bring that kind of thing here. It's like no, you could keep that there. We have plenty of Venezuelans who are hardworking, good people. We got what we need out of you, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not painting the entire Venezuelan community,
but this guy is.
But the thing, well, this guy thinks that they're all like him. And I was reading on the X account how many people were responding, and there were a lot of Hispanics who responded on there and telling them to go home, and that he wasn't a representative of the Venezuelan community.
The same thing.
This kid that he's defending, he tried to rob a sporting goods store, and when confronted by a security guard, he fired a shot that hit a Brazilian tourist. So he missed the security guard and hit a tourist.
Man.
So he fled the store. They pursued him. They caught him in Times Square, and basically this guy is on TikTok telling people that they need to contribute for the defense of this kid and support this criminal. So, but this is what's going on, and of course the old sanctuary city thing kicks in, and ICE can't be called and to support this guy and the family. So it's just a continuous melee. We've got the murder that we're going to talk about in Georgia, the one killed by the illegal immigrant in is it Fulton County?
Riley
Laken, Riley Laken, or Laken Riley, whatever. But this young lady was a student, a nursing student. He's a student in Georgia, a nursing student, and this beast, that's what I call him, he basically, I guess, tried to assault her, and she fought back, and he ended up brutally murdering her by bashing her head in. I mean, it was a brutal situation, and interestingly enough, this guy, this illegal, had been arrested, I think, in Baltimore for another assault, and the mayor in Baltimore had him released. So he left Baltimore, went down to Georgia, assaulted this poor girl, and killed her. Because, again, sanctuary city, you couldn't call ICE to deport the guy, even though everybody knew he was an illegal. So it's just that one after another. How many more stories do we need to hear?
I mean, we've heard these kind of stories before across the years.
With open borders, like with a complete disregard for U.S. law, but who are we inviting? Because I lived in Aruba, which is 14 miles off the coast of Venezuela, so naturally, a lot of Venezuelans there. One of my best friends I've ever had in life is Venezuelan. He still lives down there. He's an English teacher and a worship leader. And I mean, there's some of the most educated, sophisticated people groups I've ever met. So what we're seeing here is the dregs of society that are breaking the laws and coming over and, you know, trampling over our immigration laws and cutting the lines and doing what they want. So now, yeah, the name of the gang, that the Venezuelan gang that was, they took credit for assaulters in New York City. It's called Tren de Aragua, which maybe I'm botching that pronunciation. I mean, that's what we're getting. We're not getting upstanding Venezuelan citizens, as far as I can see.
Well, that's what Trump meant when he says, you know, they're not sending their best. You know, this is what he meant. The kind of system we have set up right now, it encourages this sort of thing. Exactly.
And I read an article that basically outlined the fact that in Venezuela, they had opened up their prisons and let all the criminals out and told them head north to the U.S.
The same thing happened in Russia, to Finland.
Yep. So the basically they've emptied their prisons, and that's a lot of who are coming up here in these caravans up through Central America and through Mexico, and we're ending up with all these people. And that lady in Chicago was speaking to the mayor in Chicago, and she said as much too. She says there's some good people, but there's a lot of people that are coming through that have been let out of prisons in these other countries. And so we're ending up with these criminals that have been let go in these other countries. And the only way they were letting them go is if they promised to leave the country. And so that's who we're getting. And these people that are very violent in a lot of cases. These are not just petty thieves or whatever. We're talking about.
Some of these guys have seen war. Like, some of these guys are major criminals.
Yeah, but so it's,
and we need to look into that.
Not to confuse people who've seen war with criminals, but
no, but what I mean in Venezuela especially is the kind of people that were thrown away by the communist regime. You know, every time a communist regime comes to power, there's the kind, you know, the people who brought the revolution are the first people to get thrown into jail. So these are people who, you know, the government knows are trained killers. And what I mean by that is we might want to look into, as a country, when Trump gets into office again, to consider this an act of migrant warfare, which is a defined act of aggression. And Venezuela, as we know, is a hostile state to us. So that might be something that we might want to look into. Again, especially if it's the government of Venezuela, especially that's looking into putting these guys on our borders. You know, we know what motivations they have, especially with their connections to China and everyone else.
Here's something I wanted to point out real quick. We have our guest coming on soon, and we can look at your article too on Fox News. But here's the guy that that's, you know, allegedly murdered her. We should use that because we uphold justice,
legal
system,
terms,
innocent until proven guilty, and all that. So, but here's the funny thing. This is what CNN is saying. They talk, and then they go on this rant about how we're not supposed to, you know, our whole justice system is based on innocent until proven guilty. I mean, that in and of itself is laughable with what they're doing with Trump, you know, trying to keep him off the ballot.
Yeah, really.
I was just going to say, unless your name is Trump.
So it, you know, when it suits them, we want to uphold the justice system, right? But here's the funny thing: they say they go down later into study after study has found no conclusive link between immigrants and crime. And then they go on and Stanford and Princeton and all these other woke, you know, institutions talk about how there's no link between or how actually crime is in these areas, border cities, and so on and so forth. The illegal immigrants have a much lower ratio of crime activity than U.S. citizens. But the funny thing, and let me pull up something else here. I was doing
you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want with data.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well,
you can make it say whatever you want.
And when they do commit crimes,
but
you
here,
see how brutal they are.
Let's
That's
look
really
and see what the U.S. Justice Department has to say about the issue. So this is a study that's been ongoing. It stopped in 2018, but they updated it in 2021. And there's this, if you can see here, I mean, I could go to study, but it talks about how since the 90s, crime amongst the illegal immigrant demographic has drastically skyrocketed. And if you look,
right,
this is from the horse's mouth, U.S. Department of Justice, okay? Not Stanford, not Princeton. This is from our government. You look here, non-U.S. citizens, right at 2018, right before 2018. And so it's a steady incline. And then there's a slight decline here. But then when did Trump get elected? 2016. Okay, so here we go. But then right here, it starts spiking. And since Biden's been in office, if this chart were to keep going, you'd see this red line of non-U.S. citizens convicted of federal crimes, both immigration related and non-immigration related. So we're talking about drugs, violence, all these things as well.
Right. And also something to point out is that since that line moved up the way it did, that implies that those people, it's not like they just immediately started to commit crimes. These are probably being investigated and was concluded under Trump. So the media might say, oh, they don't commit as many crimes. Well, they have an ability to hide those crimes until somebody starts looking, like a conservative president.
Well, I mean, they have the data is kind of inconclusive, but you also have to consider the source and the people that are putting out this propaganda. They were talking about it on the Clay and Buck show today. That exactly what you were saying, Peter, about there's no conclusive evidence that illegals commit more crime than regular U.S. citizens, and that's false. Very false. And more importantly, you have a factor in there because they mix non-U.S. citizens between illegals and what I would call green card holders, which are legal residents. They are non-citizens, but they're legal residents. So the influx of people from countries like Russia and other countries, not Latin America, has been tremendous over the last 10 to 15 years. And so that's where a lot of this crime comes from. You hear about these Russian mobs. Basically, instead of Italian gangsters, now we have Russian gangsters. And the cartels have infiltrated this country, and they have gangs all over the place. And in New York City, these Venezuelans, these new ones that came in, have already formed gangs in the city, and they're the ones that are going around perpetrating these what they call smash and grab robberies throughout the city in jewelry stores. And as you saw in that assault of the police officers, they have no regard for law enforcement. Right. And the sad thing is law enforcement.
Our White House has no regard for law enforcement. I mean,
exactly. But that's
when
you see. Well, when you see people like Alvin Bragg basically saying that, you know, we can't hold these illegal immigrants because of their what do they call it? No bail system. Okay, these guys that assaulted the police officer were arrested, processed, and immediately released. There was no bail posted. There was no attempt to hold people because they thought, well, we can't do that to them because of our policies.
Yeah, the guy
And
that
so
murdered this girl, or allegedly murdered this girl, he was detained and let go.
Yeah,
Happens a lot.
exactly what I was saying. And they're talking about holding the mayor of Baltimore liable for letting the guy go. And so we'll see what happens with these things. But this is the kind of thing that we're hearing about almost every day now.
It's a real shame.
The liberal networks are just blabbermouthing everything. They're trying to demagogue everything and make Republicans look like, we're just anti-immigrant and we don't want. We don't want crime.
It's hilarious. All three
And
of us saying we're being told we're anti-immigrant.
I'll put a copy of this this statement here, whatever you want to. I mean, this is statistical findings based on the 5 districts along the U.S.-Mexico border, and it includes the U.S. Marshal Service, the DEA, the Executive Office for U.S. Attorneys, Administration Office of the U.S. Courts, and the U.S. Sentencing Commission, Federal Bureau of Prisons. So I'll put this in the show notes, and you can either believe CNN or this. There
you go.
Yeah. You're being lied to.
Absolutely.
All right. So before we bring Heidi on, I wanted to touch real briefly on the announcement by RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel, who has stated that she's going to be stepping down at the RNC meeting. I think it's March the 8th. President Trump has basically nominated the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party, Michael Whatley, and then his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, has been nominated to.
Looks like a bit of technical difficulty, folks. Just one moment, please. We're going to have our guest on pretty soon. And the general idea of this announcement is basically to look. Oh, Hugo is back. Very nice. I was carrying it on, Hugo.
What, did you lose
Just
me?
for a second. I was explaining to our folks. Don't worry about that. Yeah, I was explaining to our folks that, we got some shakeups coming, and it's going to be a big chance for all of us to have a big impact in our local politics.
Can you hear me now?
That's quite all right.
All right. So anyway, we're gonna be having a new RNC chair, and it looks like President Trump will have the voice in that. So we'll see on March the 8th. We'll report back to see who we end up with.
Wish us luck.
There's some there's some people that are pushing back against Michael Whatley, and especially Laura Trump. They think that it's tantamount to nepotism, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, so now before we bring on our guest, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Heidi Ganahl, former governor candidate in the last election here in Colorado, and she was also a regent for the University of Colorado. Prior to that, I met Heidi, I guess, I don't know, about 10 plus years ago at a Republican event, and she's always been active in the Republican circles. And as far as she went was when she ran for governor against Polis, and I thought she did a good job, but the left had the last word on that. So Heidi is going to come aboard because she has helped start this new group called Rocky Mountain Voice, and she's going to talk to us about that and what the goals are of the group, and also give us some insights as to what's going on politically in the state of Colorado and what we can do to better our chances to win some races. So we want to bring in Heidi now, and we will welcome her to the Hispanic Patriot podcast. Hello, Heidi.
Hello, Hugo. How are you?
Doing great. Where are you at? Are you at home now?
I'm just at home. I've got kids and dogs and all kinds of things happening outside this door. So hopefully they'll stay calm for just a little while.
There you go.
So you're back from Texas, or is that coming up?
I'm leaving for Texas tomorrow to go down to Dallas, actually, for a cheerleading competition for my 11-year-old. Please pray for
Good luck.
them. Oh,
Absolutely. Good luck.
There was this.
That's right.
There was a meeting.
I forgot to mention, give us a little background so the audience can kind of get to know you a little more, the ones that aren't familiar with your background, Camp Bow Wow and all of that.
Sure. Well, I love dogs. I went from dogs to politics, which is a crazy transition, but it was fun. I grew up, with not a lot of money, but a lot of love in my family. And they encouraged me to go out and do, something big that I wanted to do. And I was always very entrepreneurial. I was the kid starting the lemonade stand and the dog walking business and just a big dreamer. And so I ended up working my way through college, got a degree. They were very focused on education and making sure that we got our degrees. My brother and I, they did not. They met when they were 18 and 19 at a beach party in Southern California and got married real young. And so they encouraged us to get our college education, which now I don't know if I'll encourage my kids to do the same. It's kind of crazy, especially after being a regent. But then I started my business in 2000. I love dogs, and I was married to my first husband, Bayan, who was a big dog lover too and an entrepreneur. And we wrote up this business plan based on a place right next to my dad's business called Doggy Day Camp. And we added the kind of the mountain lodge look and the boarding component and training, wrote up the business plan, and we didn't have any money. We just kind of were dreamers and thought we'd try and, pull it off. The landlords thought we were crazy that we wanted to put 100 dogs in a room together to play. This was before that was a thing. But 6 months later, my husband died in a small plane crash, and my life changed dramatically. I went from, kind of the all-American kid, just working my way through life and trying to figure out how to make it big in my business career and have a family, et cetera. And I was just brokenhearted. And so I struggled for a while. I ended up getting back into pharmaceutical sales, which I had started before, put the business plan away for Camp Bow Wow. But about 5 years later, my brother came to me, 7 years younger, and he's like, "You're a mess. Like, how do we get you back on track? Let's take out that business plan that you and Bayan wrote and see if we can't get it going." So we did. We opened Camp Bow Wow, the first one, in an old Veterans of Foreign War hall just south of Denver back in 2000. He had this great idea to put a webcam up on a stick that would take a picture every 60 seconds and post to the internet. That was video streaming back then. And it was a big hit. So we opened a second one, and then I started franchising. I didn't know anything about it, but one of my clients was in franchising with Mrs. Fields Cookies. And it just took off. It did really well. People love their dogs. They loved the concept, especially that they could watch their dogs playing. And so we grew it and grew it. My brother and I fired each other several times, so we ended up parting ways. He ended up following his passion of sound engineering. But yeah, we made it through the Great Recession of 2008, almost lost the business there. And in the meantime, I got set up on a blind date with my husband, Jason, who's also very entrepreneurial. And he's like, "Let's have some kids." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have a teenager and I have this business." And I was 40. And so we did. We had Holly, who's now 14, and we have the twins. When we tried for another one, we got twins who are almost 12. And our life is pretty chaotic and crazy, but always following our passion. He's a big barbecue guy. He has several barbecue restaurants in town called GQ Barbecue. And he does a really good job. And
I've been to that. It's really good.
I'm gonna have to go.
It's tasty. It's tasty. You got to try it. I love the brisket and the burnt ends. The burnt ends are my favorite.
That's the best.
But yeah,
I didn't know that was your connection. That's a good to know. But I've been to the one in Park Meadows.
Yeah, that we live right by there.
Nice. Everyone, check it out.
Well, and it's been interesting watching him go through all the craziness of COVID and all the regulations and opening more locations and how the government kind of gets in the way at every stop. And that's why I started getting involved in politics, because as I was building my franchise company, the darn government got in the way every time it could. And it made me so frustrated. And so I started to push back and started to learn how to lobby and like go to the Capitol and speak out. And I really enjoyed it. At the same time, I was on the business school board at the University of Colorado, and somebody said you should run for regent because you love politics, you love, CU, and you love education. I'm like, regent? What's a regent? Which most of the state of Colorado doesn't know, but we're one of 4 states that elect our board of regents. So I ran in 2016, and I had a surprise upset against Alice Madden, who is Polis's right-hand gal on the blueprint.
Yeah, I remember. So, yeah, but, regarding dogs and politics, some people would say they prefer the dogs.
Oh, yeah. The dogs are a lot easier, believe
A lot
me.
more honest, too, I bet.
Oh, yeah. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
There you go.
I'm a dog person for life. I've had dogs pretty much all my life. Right now we have a Jack Russell.
Oh.
She's 14 years old, going to be 15 in September. But she's a handful, very strong-willed, and she was a survivor because she was a rescue from a puppy mill, and she survived parvo, and then a few years ago she survived pancreatitis.
Oh my goodness!
Which is usually pretty lethal for dogs. She was in the hospital a couple days, and she came out, and she's a fighter, and she's been on prescription food for ever since. So we told her we're going to put her on the street corner with a sign because she's so expensive to
Hey,
A
man,
fighter just like
work.
her owner, then.
we'll work for food. But anyway, let's talk to us a little bit about, you and I talked about the RMV, Rocky Mountain Voice project that has been launched. When was it launched?
about 6 weeks ago, but it took about a year to get it launched. So
there you go. So, we sat in on that meeting. I kind of liked what I heard and what the game plan was. So talk to us a little bit about that and tell us what the end game is with that group.
Well, Hugo, as you well know, we have had a couple bad decades in politics of losing elections. And, I bought into all this stuff that the consultants said and all the old, the folks who've been in politics forever that ran for office years ago. This is how you have to do this. This is how you have to win. Well, it was a disaster and it didn't work. And so after the election, I was like, what the heck just happened? We got to figure this out. And politics is different now. You got to try different things and use different tactics. And so when I want to do something, I go out and find people who have done what I want to do and try and learn from them. And so I visited some great folks in Texas who have worked really hard to keep it from turning blue. And we built a friendship. I've been down there several times and really studied their model on how they protected Texas and kind of tilted it going the other way towards red. And there's 3 problems that they were able to solve that they worked on. One was we have no way to get our message out up here in the great state of Colorado. I'm glad you're doing this podcast. This is the way we're going to win, is by each of us using our voice. But the liberal media has to get in the way every which way it can. So we've got to solve for that. The second thing or problem that we have is bad data and technology. We do not have good data. Like when we go door knock, you never know who's going to answer the door. Sometimes you get run off. Sometimes you find someone who's friendly, but it's really frustrating. And we just have not even close to being able to match the Democrats on that part of it. Ballot harvesting, you name it, targeting voters. The third problem is conservatives are in silos. We have all these great people working in their little pockets, but nobody works together, right? And I get it. Everybody has different views. We're mad about this, mad about that, pretty stubborn. We're pretty independent folks, us conservatives.
That's true.
So yeah, it gets in our way a little bit sometimes, but that's all right. That's why we are the way we are. Very entrepreneurial, independent, in it for individual rights. Whereas the Democrats just like follow the leader, whatever they say.
Changing a dime.
Yes.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we're seeing the consequences of that at the Capitol. It's crazy right now.
They're easier to hurt.
Yes, they are cats. They're the cats. We're the dogs.
We got more to offer, though.
Yes.
Well, getting back, I wanted to touch on real quick, you talking about Texas and the transformation. I came from Texas back in 1999. And before that, Texas was controlled by the Democrats. They held every major office. And back in the mid 90s is when things started to turn, because we had a game plan there. I was a captain down there in one of the precincts. I lived in a pretty liberal county, Bexar County, which is San Antonio. But there was a movement that was put together on reaching all the voters. And now, if you know about San Antonio right now, San Antonio is majority Hispanic. About 52, 53% are Hispanic in San Antonio. The game plan was to get George Bush elected governor back in the mid 90s. There was a lady known as Ann Richards. I don't know if you know the history, but Ann Richards was a very volatile left-wing lady. And she had a mouth on her. But the game plan started like in the mid 90s to get Governor Richards. She was the governor, and then she was challenged by George Bush. And I worked on that campaign, and we ended up unseating her. And in the process, that election, we unseated a lot of the major seats in the state. And that started the turnaround, so to speak. And then we started winning more races after that. And now, of course, every major office is controlled by Republicans in Texas, even though there are liberal pockets like Houston and Dallas and some of the areas. But the game plan is similar to what needs to happen here. Here, I personally do not believe that Colorado is a blue state. Okay. And I'm talking about philosophically and value-wise. The problem is what happened here was the blueprint. And as you know, the blueprint came along, and after Governor Owens, we haven't had pretty much any major office in Colorado except for maybe one. So I think that the game plan has to be to involve the entire state. And I think too much focus is placed on unaffiliated voters, in my opinion. I think they're important, but I don't think they are the end all to be all, because the numbers I've looked at haven't changed with unaffiliated voters. They pretty much are in that 60-40 range. They vote 60% with the Democrats. And a lot of unaffiliateds today are former Republicans. They left for a variety of reasons, but I believe that a conservative still votes their heart and their values. And, they can complain about, being disenfranchised, or they don't like what's going on. But when it comes down to vote, they're not going to vote for a lefty. I mean, that's just a fact. The difference is, or the point that needs to be focused on, is that big pocket of Hispanic voters that are out there, because the numbers don't lie. 1.2 million Hispanics in Colorado. About half of those are citizens that are eligible to vote. And again, and only 48% of those are registered to vote or participate in the electoral process. So what does that mean? There's a pool of 300,000 voters out there that are untapped. So what would happen if the Republican Party made an honest effort, a real effort to garner, say, and we did it, and we got 1/3 of those votes? Say we got another 100,000 in our ranks that voted Republican for conservatives.
I believe a little bit more than that, and that would have pushed you over the edge to the governor's mansion, man.
Yeah.
How many statewide races for the legislature and all have been won by more than 100,000 votes.
Right.
So it's a strategy, and it has to be in conjunction with what you were saying when we spoke before, with other strategies. But that has to be one of the strategies.
I think that,
don't you think?
Definitely, absolutely. Heidi, one thing I wanted to say, if I might, is just that I think that this show that we're doing right here is a big proof of your model before you give your answer, because this was sort of the two halves of the Republican Party in that race.
Yeah.
We had the Hispanic sort of wing in this strategy with Greg Lopez, and we had you. And I think like you said, we're very atomized in the Republican Party. This goes back much longer than us. This has been long since before we were even around. And I think that your plan to harmonize those elements together, because you saw if they were harmonized before, we would have won. So I really wanted to say that I really do think that even this show is proof of concept.
I agree. I'm so glad you guys are doing this. People pay attention in different ways now than they used to. You can't just send them a flyer and show up and door knock their house once and expect them to vote your way. They watch social media, they watch podcasts, they watch small videos, they get their content in very short, easy chunks. Polis spent $30 million on TV ads and digital in the last 3 weeks of the campaign through different groups and organizations. But basically just little snippets here and there. Every time you turn on your laptop, every time you turn on your phone, every time you turn on your TV, it drove me nuts. My kids would be like, "Mom, you're on TV again. He's yelling about you." I'm like, "Yeah." But that goes to the importance of Rocky Mountain Voice and what we're doing there. We've got to build a messaging machine, but we don't need new stuff. We need to help each of you build your audience. And if we help 50 people with great podcasts, radio shows, articles, columns, rise up and build your audience and be more effective with your messaging, then voila, we have our army and we have the votes to get across the finish line. So what we did is we built an aggregator. It's a website that promotes all the different voices out there, conservative and libertarian. And we have Telemundo and some other Hispanic voices on there too, including you, Hugo. And so what happens is people can know that they can go to one place and find all their favorites, and they don't have to search around the internet and look at 14 different blogs and listen to 3 different radio stations. It's all right there. And then we send an email out a couple times a week with the news of the day. It's a 5-minute read. And this is the best part. We built it as a 501c3 or a nonprofit, and we're raising donations through some really generous donors, not the typical political ones. These are business people who understand what's at stake in our state. And they wanted this to be free. I wanted this to be free. So there's no paywalls, there's no sponsorships, there's no advertising, there's no fees. You can subscribe and get the newsletter, but we don't charge you anything for that. And then we're building a really robust social media platform, a speakers bureau. So if all of our groups are hosting events, we can have really good speakers. You guys could totally be one of those speakers, each one of you. You speaking to the younger audience, Hugo, you're more of my age bracket. You can come along with me on the trail.
Yep.
But it's really fun, and it's a neat way to get out in the community and just get rallied people around the truth. Like, we just want to know the truth, right? We got to get our message out. So that's the first part of it.
Very nice.
Okay, so to that point you just made, I'm the boomer and Nick is the millennial.
That's what we are.
I love that.
We got the boomer and the millennial.
Everyone's
covered,
coming along with us.
You guys are tag teaming it. It's perfect. I have my daughter helping me who's 28. She does all the behind the scenes stuff. Like she'll do all the social media and get the podcast out there and stuff. But it's great, like, because she understands the messaging that works for her generation, and I understand the messaging that works for ours.
Yes. So with regards to involvement, what have you heard feedback wise from the people that you've reached out to? How many are involved right now? And what is the general consensus of what this group can achieve?
So our goal is to get 1 million people signed onto the platform in the next 3 years, and maybe sooner if we can, keep plugging along. We're getting great momentum. We've got a lot of people really paying attention. I can always tell, because if we say something spicy, I get like my phone lights up and I'm like, oh, good, people are paying attention, which is good and bad, but it's super fun. And the Democrats are definitely paying attention. They ping me all the time and they're trying to figure out a way to attack this. And some of the old school people in politics are unsettled by this. They're like, what is she up to? What's she doing? There's got to be another motive. And I'm like, yeah, I want my state back. That's what I want. And I learned so much in the governor's race and being a regent for 6 years. I know kind of where the gaps are and what needs to happen to move us forward. And it's no surprise to you guys. We have to build a messaging machine. We have to get good data and technology, which we're investing in through Rocky Mountain Voice. And then we started another organization called the Road to Red, which is really a support organization for grassroots groups. So if you have a grassroots group and maybe you have 100 members and you have meetings, you get 20 people to show up, we're going to give you for free the support and services you need to grow your group to 200, 300, 400 people. You're going to have a great website. You're going to have great social media. You're going to make sure your compliance is there with your legal entity. You're going to have great events. And we're going to put you on a technology platform that's really effective and helps you build your list. So if we do that with 100 different groups all over the state, boom, you have your army. And there's not a darn thing the Democrats can do about it.
With a standardized fleet of equipment, too. That's amazing.
Yep. I think that part's really important because, we've all got to be swimming in the same direction. And this platform that we're asking people to go on is, data security is very important, but it's also about sharing resources and figuring out if we have all these groups on the same platform and all of a sudden a bad bill comes to the Capitol, which is every day pretty much, but say they needed, Lori with CPAN had a rally today at the Capitol and we need to get everybody who can make it there. We asked the groups, can we opt you into a mass email to everybody, alerting them that we need this? Boom. We have, a few 100,000 people, eventually 1 million people to get that alert. So I think it's going to be really critical to what we're doing and to battling against the liberal media. Every day I'd wake up on the campaign trail, and I know Greg dealt with this too. We were battling the media most of the time, not our opponent, which was Polis. And unfortunately, they liked it that way. That was the point.
Well, the media, the left controls the media, and that's the sad part. But there are groups like, I have a friend at Entrevisión, who is the company that manages Univision, which is the competitor of Telemundo. In my experience, I've been on both. In 2016 in particular, Telemundo had me on almost every other week for individual interviews and commentary about President Trump and his chances of winning. And I think that was one of my favorite times as chairman of Colorado Hispanic Republicans, because they kept calling me every week to say, what do you think? Is Trump going to win? How's he going to do with Hispanics, et cetera? And one time I was on a panel over at Telemundo, and I was the only conservative there. And the question came up about how much of the Hispanic vote President Trump was going to garner in Colorado. And of course, all these liberal talking heads were all in the single digits, and they came to me, and I said, based on what I'm seeing, I think President Trump is going to garner 30 to 35% of the Hispanic vote in Colorado. And they were aghast. Their jaws dropped to the floor, and a couple of them chuckled and kind of laughed at me. And guess what? At the end of the day, President Trump got 32% of the Hispanic vote.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So what's your prediction for this election?
In this election, I'm still looking at, I'm seeing a lot of numbers that are moving towards President Trump in the minority community. Everywhere you look, the black voters are disgruntled, and this illegal migrant situation has really exacerbated the electorate out there. Like places like Chicago that are very Democrat, the community is up in arms because they have taken resources away from minorities who are citizens to give them to illegal immigrants. Okay. Our own mayor here in Denver wants to cut the city budget, so that he can pay for the illegal immigrants. What did he call for in one of his press conferences? For Congress to act.
Oh, geez.
Not
To the tune of
not
$180
to
million.
and wait a minute, but yeah, that Congress to act by giving the city of Denver more money, not to secure the border or to stop the influx. No, he said he wanted more money, and when basically it wasn't forthcoming, then he started bashing and trashing the Republicans, not the Democrats who
No.
have
Control
something to do about it. But everything, especially with this latest debacle and clown show that this president came out with, and said the only reason the border is not secure is because of the MAGA Republicans.
Always blaming
And
us. Everything's our fault,
it is
despite that we
like,
don't have power
I
as
mean,
much as we have. Like,
That's right.
you have to be brain dead to believe such rhetoric, but the media just pushes it on, and they're hoping that they get enough people that will regurgitate this stuff. And now I'm on X a lot, I'm on Facebook, and I hear that a lot from some of these lefties, and a lot of these people, in my opinion, are being paid to post on social
but that's
media.
something that your
So,
program actually does address, Heidi, is because this is, you can't have bots in a system like this. You know what I mean? There's no reason to do so. It's all about natural engagement and real action. And I think you're absolutely right that, Obama set the precedent that everything on social media is real. Well, we've been proven time and again that no, there needs to be more than just online action. It needs to translate into real life action. So your call to arms sort of program you have built into the system, that is really going to unify Republicans, because when you get those groups together for the same things, magic happens. And we're seeing the data from, let's say, minority voters, like with the question you asked, being muddled. I actually doing research for the South Carolina primary. I could not find racial data. This was not something that was very easy to find at all, even though it's something that everybody is interested in. So I think we're going to have, we need something like what you're offering, because that data and that connectability, it's going to be shattered by the media, by the internet companies who control the narratives. So what you're doing, sort of, if I'm not mistaken, is a big sort of tip of the spear against the shield, which is the media for the Democrats.
yeah,
That's right.
Have you had an opportunity to reach out to the Hispanic Chamber in Denver?
Not yet. You guys love an introduction.
Okay, I mean, Mike Ferrafino is a Democrat. I think you know him.
I've met him a few times through my business work.
Yeah, but he's one that I would classify as a reasonable Democrat. He's not a demagogue. He's not a far lefty, because the chamber is all about business, and business people in that chamber. We were members for years, and I remember going to one of the galas, and I met so many people there that were business people, members of that chamber, that were being run by liberals, and they would quietly tell me, "We're Republicans," and it was amazing, because if you're in business, you're entrepreneurial, you've got conservative values, you want your business to grow, and you don't hear a lot about that. But one of the things that I think in particular, the iron is hot to strike right now because of everything that's taken place economically. And so reaching out to a group like that, to maybe where there could be some dialogue, or even find out a way to get information out to these business owners that want to learn about this effort and how maybe they can participate, would be beneficial for the cause, because they're Hispanic business owners, and what is their number one goal? They want their business to succeed and prosper. And who's preventing them from doing that?
Jared Polis, Mike Johnston, Joe Biden, Jason Crow, Joe Neguse, all those. Diana DeGette. They're a crazy bunch that just doesn't understand the damage they're doing. Hopefully the voters are starting to understand, but we just put out a poll on RockyMountainVoice.com. That's the website. and it's called sentiment polling. And what it does is it uses artificial intelligence and certain technology to have eyes on social media. So we did it for CD4 and the congressional race, and it talks about, it kind of picks up on where the conversations are and who's being talked about, bad or good. And it's a new type of polling that adds a different kind of point of view to the discussion.
Very interesting.
And yeah, it's really cool. So it goes to the point you were talking about, like, we've got to use the tools of modern day to get across the finish line. And social media is so important to the equation, but you have to understand how it works. And if you're a candidate, you've got to be on there and you've got to have conversations in the digital world. And if you're not, you're dead in the water. You're not going to win. And that showed up in the polling.
Yeah. Everything and everybody.
Well,
yeah. But we're going to try and do some really innovative out of the box things during this election to figure out how to really get a grip on what messages people want to hear about. In this polling, we asked them find out from the social media conversations what people really are worried about right now. And of course, it's not a big surprise, but on the conservative side, it's election integrity, it's immigration, it's the border, it's child trafficking. And the liberal media doesn't talk much about most of that.
Yeah. So what in closing, what I would like to do is discuss more ways in which we can collaborate. And one of the ways I think that we could do, because one of the things I want to build up on our website is a page of affiliates, people that, that we are wanting to support and get the word out. So we can get a link put up for Rocky Mountain Voice on the website, and then, be able to connect and then advertise that through social media. Because I think if people understand more of what the end game is, because I've read different things about this project, and now there's this other group that's sprung up called Rhino Watch.
Oh, geez. Don't get me started,
I don't know if
Hugo.
You heard about that?
Yes, I am apparently on the Hall of Shame for the Rhino Watch because I actually raised money to implement this project. I'm like, you guys, I'm helping you. Like,
how dare you? Like, you've got to become less sensitive. That's something this program can help do.
I spoke to Jimmy Sangenberger today, and he's going to be a guest on the show next week or the following week. We're going to do a big piece on what's going on, because Jimmy's pretty well knowledgeable about all the different topics, and he and I go way back, and I call him my favorite millennial because he has been my.
You have a different favorite millennial now.
I'm getting there.
I know.
You know what I mean?
But Jimmy's been around for a long time, so but yeah.
I give him a hard time. Is why.
Yeah, he's on the wall of shame with me, as is John Caldera. I'm like, you guys are like, I can't believe the people they're picking. We're the fighters. We're out on the front lines doing all the work. Here you go. You're going to make it next. Just watch.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, I'm focused, laser focused on the Hispanic vote.
We need you to be, and we'll help you however we can. And we'll take this podcast and put it out to our whole audience and promote it.
We appreciate
start to build your audience up.
Yep. So we're going to get back with you on a date to do that meeting we talked about.
Anytime.
And we'll get that going. But any final words you'd like to leave the audience with?
I'd say all hope is not lost. The Democrats are serving this up to us on a silver platter. We are destroying the state of Colorado. Would you like to take it and turn it around? Why, yes, we would. We just need to learn how to win elections again and get our message out there. And you guys are doing that. We're doing that. There's some other great people doing it. Jimmy's one of them. If we all work together, we can win again. We will win again. And Colorado will become the land of the free again, the wild, wild west that it was meant to be.
Turn red again. That's what the name is, to turn red.
Road to red, road to red.
It's going to be.
All right. Well, Heidi, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing information about the group. We hope to, stay connected, of course, and have you on again as the group moves along. And anytime there's something of import that comes up, feel free to shoot me a text or whatever and let me know, and we can get it up and talk about it on the show, and also promote it on the website, and so through our social media. So we'll we'll be a participant, and hopefully we can get some things done.
That sounds
for a
great, you
change.
guys. I look forward to working together and to winning the Hispanic vote, winning the mom vote, winning all votes in Colorado so that we can get our state back.
Very nice.
All right.
All together.
All right. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have
ma'am.
a good night. All right.
That was
So
Heidi
that
Ganahl,
was,
everybody.
That was an interesting
See you now.
Ganahl, yes. That was an interesting topic, and I think it's a nucleus for something good to happen. So hopefully it'll be successful.
Absolutely. Like I said before, that was the two pieces of the election that we had in our gubernatorial race. Like, it was the Hispanic vote and the vote that Heidi brought. And, we absolutely went out and voted no matter who the candidate was. But all of the foundation that she talked about, that being even stronger and interconnected, it goes from, oh, we might win to we can't lose.
Yep. All right, so we're out of time for another great show. We encourage you to look us up on YouTube, X, go to our website, HispanicPatriot.com, interact with us, help us grow, because we have a good message, and we want to represent you out there, conservatives. But we're open to you guys on the left too.
Absolutely.
If you want to have a dialogue, we're very open to you. But we need to keep it respectful, and we need to keep it topical. I think we can arrive at common interests as Americans and do things that are good for America,
Right.
which benefits all our citizens. So don't be strangers. We'll be back next week with another edition. Keep tab on our social media. We're going to have our announcements and promotions for upcoming shows, and hopefully we'll be able to reach more and more people every week. So follow us on Twitter, X, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Doesn't cost you anything. But if you're inclined, we will take donations to help us grow and get the message out. So thank you again, everyone. God bless you. God bless America.
Take care, everybody. God bless you, and hope you have a wonderful week.
All right.